Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, then please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. So today I've got another video from my conversation with Josh from the Dogs podcast, and we spoke about who other than everybody's favorite topic, SHEDEUR Sanders. Spoke about whether or not he should be viewed as the Browns QB1, whether that's now in March, throughout the off-season, and of course going into next season. Me and Josh had slightly different opinions on this. Anyone that has obviously watched any of my previous videos on this topic knows where I stand. If not, watch the video and find out. But if you haven't already, I've also got another video already out with Josh where we talk about the Browns free agent signings, mainly the offensive line, and what we think about what they've done in the offensive line. As I said, this video is about SHEDEUR. We do a little bit at the end, kind of expectations, as much expectations as you can have in March, of course, before the drafts even happened. And we spoke a little bit about the 5 first-round pick proposal that the Browns have had as well. And then stay tuned, because I've got one more video coming from my conversation with Josh where we did the whole offensive tackle versus wide receiver debate in the draft. So I had a lot of fun with that. Make sure you go and check out the Dogs podcast as well if you haven't already. I think all the videos from this content is up there. So if you want to get ahead of it, go and check it out on their channel. But I obviously appreciate you checking it out on my channel as well. But without further ado, I won't keep you guys much longer. As I said, this is my conversation with Josh from the Dogs podcast, talking about SHEDEUR Sanders, should he be QB1, and a little bit at the end about expectations and the Browns' 5 first-round pick proposal that they're putting to the NFL owners meeting. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. Please leave any comments, any likes, all of that good stuff. But without further ado, here is my conversation with Josh. Moving on to another topic that I think probably the other biggest debate amongst Browns Twitter right now, and that is SHEDEUR Sanders, and whether or not he is the Browns QB1 or whatever. I know you probably, from what I've seen from your tweets, etc., although I do have to be careful, because I remember, you explained this to me, where I think one of whoever was on the Twitter at the time disagreed with one of my tweets or something, and then the next day I think it was you that was on the account that agreed with, and I was going, hold on, and then I realized it's two different people's obviously opinions.
Yeah, I'm
so
on
obviously
there, I'd say 95% of the time is me, and then the 5% that's not is Blake, and you can usually tell.
I think I've learned over the last few months, I've kind of learned who it is that I'm interacting with, and that's why I think that I'm pretty confident that this is your kind of view on it. But I think you're someone that has not, I say, a lot of faith, shall we say, but someone that believes that SHEDEUR Sanders deserves a chance and should be the Browns quarterback one. So I suppose not where are you? I've just kind of said it, but what makes you feel confident in having that kind of trust or belief, shall we say, in SHEDEUR going into next year?
A couple things. So number one, the flashes, the big plays, the moments in games where he took over and was able to actually make stuff happen. I keep going back to the Titans game. And yes, I know people will say, well, it was the 3-win Titans. We lost to them.
Yeah.
We were a bad team, but we lost to them, who were supposedly a worse team, at our house. So anyway, things got really adverse in that game. Our defense was getting diced apart. We couldn't stop the run. That was a runaway game. Tennessee was going to run away with that game. SHEDEUR Sanders makes a bad throw, throws an interception, they go down, they score, and it was like it clicked. And I'm saying that is what I need my quarterback to be able to do, because they're all going to make mistakes. Can you come back, shoulder the load, and push your team, carry them, drag them through the freaking mud to a win? Well, he almost did. Kevin went for 2 when we were only down by 14. I did not understand that decision. Really put us at a disadvantage the rest of the game. One of the dumbest decisions I've ever. I was done with Kevin at that. I'm like, just get him out of here. This guy's an idiot. But he throws such a nice pass downfield, and he can move better than I think a lot of draft analysts even gave him credit for coming out of college.
Yep.
He's way mobile. His scramble rate and success is better than anything Deshaun Watson's ever done in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And he's young. He had no preparation. He was fourth on the depth chart all summer. He was throwing to trash cans. The whole situation, the whole narrative around SHEDEUR Sanders was overcoming all the obstacles to still put your team in a position to win, and he did that. We won 3 games with him as the starter, more than any of the other guys. And with how bad the offense was, decimated offensive line, different lineup every week, wide receiver core, worst in the NFL, terrible situation. They were thrown to UDFA rookies. I mean, it's just, Andrew Berry, come on, man. Help us out a little bit. I do think he deserves the opportunity to showcase what he can do with a full season of experience, a full offseason of preparation, get the rapport with your receivers, get the rapport with your offensive line. We heard, who was it, Wyatt Teller, I think, came out and said, whenever it was halftime at the Ravens game, after Dylan Gabriel went out with the concussion, they said, that's the first time we ever heard SHEDEUR Sanders' cadence. We didn't even know what his cadence was like.
Yeah.
So that was a very disadvantageous situation for him. I think he's got the skills. I think he's got the upside. If it works, the Browns are in such a great situation with the roster because you got a 5th-round rookie contract at quarterback. That saves you so much cap space. It saves you draft capital next year. You can finally reload and retool everything you need to do because you don't have to worry about the quarterback as long as you have a decent draft this year. And if it doesn't work, okay. There's plenty of other quarterbacks we can plug in there this year that won't work either. We can try Deshaun Watson. It's not going to work. He's not coming back. I don't care if he plays decent football. I don't think he can play good football anymore. Even if it's decent, they're not going to re-sign him. He's not going to be the starter next year.
Yeah.
The only quarterback who has the potential to be the starter next year and in the future is SHEDEUR Sanders. That's why I think he deserves the shot to prove whether or not he can be.
Yeah, and I think similar with the draft thing, if anyone is sat here thinking that I'm going to be sat here going, no, SHEDEUR Sanders definitely doesn't deserve a chance to start, that's not going to happen because I'm not, I think it's one of them. Obviously, with it being SHEDEUR Sanders, it just brings so much, I don't even know what to call it, just, so much, not drama, because none of this is his fault. And I always have to make sure to point this out because, I think I've been maybe unfairly, in my opinion, grouped into that kind of like anti-SHEDEUR Sanders side of Browns Twitter, which I don't quite understand. And I even had someone in my comments the other day telling someone else that I was the biggest SHEDEUR hater and that I've never said anything nice about SHEDEUR. And it's like, well, if you actually go and look at all the stuff I've said about him, I've said plenty of nice things about him. So I always have to make sure that I'm careful by first saying that, when I talk about all of the drama and all of that stuff around SHEDEUR, that's not SHEDEUR. And that's not me saying that that's SHEDEUR by any means. He is, in all intents and purposes, done everything right. He came in, he blocked all of the outside noise out. He worked hard. He earned his opportunity that he got. And then, when he got his opportunity, he showed more flashes than any other quarterback that we saw. So I do always want to make that point of like, whenever I do talk about that stuff, it's not about SHEDEUR, the person, by any means. But I think for me, it's, as I said, so all of that kind of taken into account with the flashes that we saw, etc. That's why that I'm not one of these people that's saying, no, get him off my roster because I get annoyed about his fans. I'm not going to say let's get rid of a guy that showed flashes just because certain people on Twitter are going to come and brigade my tweets or something like that. I think that's just a silly thing to do. And I think anyone doing that is doing so not because of the player, but because of everything that goes around it. So, I say all of that to say that I think he deserves a chance. I'm not, not going to sit here and say that, like, no, I've seen enough from him. He deserves a chance. But I think where I kind of lie on it was I don't want him having, we've heard Andrew Berry, we've heard Todd Munting, they've talked about it's going to be a quarterback competition, however much of a competition that is, we will, obviously wait and see. Dylan Gabriel and Deshaun Watson, not exactly much of a competition for him to go up against. So that's kind of where it is for me, is that, if that's the case, then I don't think it's going to, I feel careful to say this, not that it's not going to be earned, but I just think that's not the best environment to do that, which is why I've kind of been in the boat of I want to bring in competition, but I don't want to bring in competition that pushes SHEDEUR out, but also or pushes him in per se. So I'm not interested in bringing in a Russell Wilson. I'm not interested in bringing in a Geno Smith. I'm not interested in bringing someone who, yes, could beat SHEDEUR Sanders in a quarterback competition because it's Russell Wilson, it's Geno Smith. They've got 10 plus years experience in the NFL. They're going to look good in training camp, obviously. But then what? You get one maybe okay year out of them, and you're in the same position next year where you're having to try and find another young quarterback. So the whole thing of competition for me has, and this is why I know I've had this take that has gotten a lot of criticism on social media. But that's why I was a fan of, well, not a fan of, but that's why I was a proponent of bringing in an Anthony Richardson. Someone that you could go and get for a 5th, 6th round pick. It's not going to cost you anything. You're not bringing him in to beat SHEDEUR. So he's not, you're not bringing in him and going, well, he's your new starter. He would have to earn that job over SHEDEUR. And I think SHEDEUR and Anthony Richardson both competing for that job would be a better environment than what we currently have with, if they're going to call it a competition, we all know it's not really a competition. I just think that's a better environment. And as I said, it's not going to cost you anything. If it doesn't work out, SHEDEUR wins the job. Great. SHEDEUR wins the job. Let's see what we have in SHEDEUR this season. If it does work out and he comes in and he wins the job, okay, we have a very fun season ahead of us to watch, and you're still not exactly discarding SHEDEUR Sanders because it's not like you've brought in a Malik Willis or something. So that's where I've been on it. I wanted to bring in competition, but that's why Anthony Richardson was the guy that, everyone said, well, what on earth are you talking about? Why wouldn't you just bring in Malik Willis? Well, if you bring in Malik Willis, then he's your starter. There's no competition. He is your starter. If you bring in Kyler Murray, everyone can say, oh, it's on the minimum. He would be He's your starter. Kyler Murray would not, Kyler Murray is a 2-time Pro Bowler, former 1st overall pick. People can have their criticisms of him. I have many criticisms of him. He would be your starter. So that's why the last few weeks, if you did see any of my tweets about Anthony Richardson, that is where it comes from, is that I think we should have brought competition in, not that's going to push SHEDEUR out, but it's going to hopefully give him more competition within this QB battle, that if he does then win the job, great, I feel better about that. What's your thoughts on that, I suppose?
Well, I'll be honest with you. The way I see it, I don't have any sources for this. This is all speculation on my part. I feel like the Browns know SHEDEUR Sanders is going to be their starter, and they're okay with that. I think they went into this offseason. They're going to talk about quarterback competition, obviously, to the public. They're not going to come in, we're handing SHEDEUR the job, because then you're going to get a lot of backlash, and you really cut off opportunities. You never know if a Kyler Murray is going to get cut and say, hey, I really want to come play for Todd Monken. Well, shit, we really need to take advantage of that if that opportunity comes up. But we already committed verbally or publicly to SHEDEUR. I get the whole competition thing, but They made no moves in free agency. They're not trading even late round assets for an Anthony Richardson. The way I saw everything play out last year, I really felt like SHEDEUR Sanders was Andrew Berry's preference at the quarterback position. Dylan Gabriel was very much Kevin Stefanski's preference. And we saw how that all played out. They brought in Joe Flacco as kind of your, let's bridge this thing in the beginning while the rookies get up to speed. And then Kevin went and gave it all to Dylan Gabriel immediately right after Joe Flacco flamed out and said, well, I'm still going to keep Joe Flacco as the backup. And Andrew Berry said, no, you're not. I'm trading him. SHEDEUR's the backup. Yeah. And we saw SHEDEUR got in there. He held the job down the rest of the year, like we've already talked about, shown the flashes and everything. I really think they're planning on giving him this opportunity. Again, I don't see Deshaun Watson as part of the competition. Definitely not Dylan Gabriel if he's even here. They might draft a later round rookie. I kind of hope they don't. I'm tired of wasting these picks when we need depth. We need a rookie contract, even if it's just a good special teams player.
Completely
That's
agree.
Better than a third string quarterback.
Yep.
So you can get UDFA quarterbacks to come in here and be on your practice squad. You can sign a veteran, whatever. We don't need to be wasting these draft picks anymore. But I do think.
Yeah, sorry, carry on. I was going to say, I completely, I completely agree with that. I mean, I think you are right. I mean, I could sit here for the last few weeks and say, well, and just a little bit of like, if anyone wondering why, obviously the Anthony Richardson, like it made a lot of sense, but also I was a big fan of Anthony Richardson coming out. I'm not going to hide that. So obviously that is something that would excite me, having two guys that, I didn't think SHEDEUR Sanders should have been drafted number 2 overall last year. I was a big, person on Browns kind of social media pushing against that. But to get him later in the first or at the end of the start of the second round, I was all on board. So to get him in the 5th round, obviously I was absolutely more than happy with, more than excited with. But I think you're right. I think everything that they've done and all the moves that they've made kind of points towards, as you said, I think they're content going into the season with a SHEDEUR Sanders. In the back of my mind, I do think, well, Deshaun Watson, everyone remembers that first training camp where the Browns came away thinking that they just watched Patrick Mahomes. And that does slightly concern me because, for me, it's like, well, Deshaun Watson can't play football because his head. Like, that's what I think it is. I just think he has completely lost the mental capabilities to play in the NFL. Like Tiger Woods. I just don't think, I just think there's something that's happened. There's a wall in there that he can't play. That doesn't mean that he can't throw a football. So when he's wearing shorts in training camp, how good does he look throwing a football? That does slightly concern me that if they were going to do a true competition, that they might go, well, Deshaun looks quite good throwing the football in shorts. I'm not interested. I'm sure you're the same. We've all seen how that goes. We're not interested. If it is the quarterback room that it is now, yes, SHEDEUR Sanders, in my opinion, should be the starter. And I think everything that we've kind of seen, you mentioned it there with Andrew Berry, there's a reason why he traded away Joe Flacco, and Kevin Stefanski was surprised by that. He obviously wanted SHEDEUR on the field. That was obviously his pick. And I think that everything that they've done and everything that they've moved points towards SHEDEUR being the starter, which I'm not against. And I have to stress that so many times, guys. I am not against SHEDEUR Sanders being the starter. I'm a big fan of the kid. I think he's a great human being. Would I like to see more on an NFL field? Of course I would, but he was a 5th round rookie playing for the worst offense in the NFL. So if anyone's going to give him that grace, it will be me. That's obviously the SHEDEUR Sanders. So I quickly want to get your thoughts on something that, just as you commented on my thing on it and agree with me. The 5 first round picks rule change that the Browns have submitted. Don't get me wrong. First and foremost, it's not going to get approved. I think everyone can. I would be shocked if it gets approved. But I'm a fan of it, and I don't know what I think I saw you're kind of in agreement with it. What's your thoughts on the kind of 5 first round picks thing? Because I've seen there seems to be like a really weird kind of reaction to this, where it seems to be this really controversial thing, and I'm kind of there like, is it?
Well, and it's not 5 first round picks. It's just picks 5 years.
Sorry. Yes.
But you're absolutely right. That's what everybody latches onto. That 5 first round picks. Who are we trading for? We're going to trade all 5 first round picks for
Joe Burrow,
or we're going to try to get 5 first for Myles Garrett. Nobody will ever trade 5 first round picks for one player. That's not what this is geared toward. It is geared toward trying to alleviate the strain of making a trade and putting premium assets into that trade that are going to hamstring you next year and the year after, or this year and next year. Let's space that out. I keep giving credit to the Bearded Browns show. They posted this, and I thought it was a great point. They said, what would the Deshaun Watson trade look like now? Obviously, still a bad trade. But if those 3 first-round picks were 2022, 24, and 26, rather than 3 in a row, space them out. That might lead to more trades happening.
We might have CJ Stroud on our team.
There you go. So more superstars could be had.
Yeah.
And, a team might be willing to do that kind of a trade if it's like, well, I don't want to screw myself for the next 3 years. Let's space this thing out. Or let's talk about a couple second-round picks a couple years from now. Maybe we can get that deal done. Yeah. And I don't hate the suggestion. I know people are like, well, we got to save the Browns from themselves. They're just going to do something stupid with this. That's a valid point. I mean, I can't tell you they won't.
Yeah,
We've done dumb things in the past, and I'm sure we'll do dumb things in the future. We're not the only team that does dumb things. And I know the Rams are all on board, I read, with this trade proposal.
The
teams that are willing to say, hey, here's a draft pick for this guy, get rid of this, they're probably going to be more on board with this. But I don't think it's as big a deal as people are making it out to be.
Yeah, and I think I think why the teams like the Rams and why you'll probably maybe see a team like Baltimore, I don't think would be against this because, and I think what plays a part of why I like it as well is that it essentially gives good GMs, you know, an advantage in some way because if you're a GM and you're good at your job and you've made it that you've created an environment with your owner where you've done a good enough job where you feel safe in your job, you know that your job is secure because of the good job that you've done up until that point, you're going to be way more way more kind of for trading picks further out in the years than maybe a GM on the hot seat. Because a GM on the hot seat, he could offer, well, I could trade this pick where I don't think I'm going to be here. But then the owner's going to go, well, no, absolutely not. That is not happening. I'm not trading a pick that I might even have the second GM after you making that pick rather than that. So I do think that it gives good GMs and creative GMs more advantage. And that's why I think the Browns are the ones that have come up with this because, we've kind of talked about it there that we don't think Andrew Berry's job should be as secure as maybe he probably thinks it is. But I think he does think it is secure. I think him and Jimmy have kind of built that thing where he probably does feel safe within his job, as much as we don't think that he should or whatever. And someone that has gotten creative within the current restraints already within trades, I just think it just, as you said, it just gives you more flexibility. It just gives you more ammo in the chamber to work with and to kind of make these trades. And I think that will result in more trades. And, you look at the NBA, you see star players get moved a lot more than you do in the NFL. Now, don't get me wrong, the NBA obviously had to put in the stipend rule to make sure that teams went too far with it, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe we see something similar in the NFL after a team does go and trade 5 first-round picks, as much as we don't think they will. But let's be honest, if any team will trade for 5 first-round picks, it's probably going to be the Browns. So maybe that's why they want to do it. But no, as you said, I think everyone wants to kind of jump onto the whole well, that means the Browns are going to trade Miles for 5. Or that means we're going to trade 5 first-round picks for Arch Manning next year. I just think it just gives you more flexibility. And if it increases trades in the NFL, I'm all for it. Quickly, final thing before I let you go, Josh. It would be remiss if I didn't ask you that. Don't get me wrong, it's March. We haven't even had the draft yet, so I'm not expecting a full breakdown. But just where we are now, what's your, not your expectations, but what's your faith in that we're going to have a better season in 2026 than what we've seen in 2025 and 2024?
Yeah, this is where people get mad at me. This is where the off season is a very resurgent time for Browns fans. We just got scarred and raked across the coals for 4 months or whatever it was during the season. We get to the offseason, it's renewed hope, it's new coaching staff, it's draft and free agents and all this kind of stuff, and SHEDEUR Sanders year 2. They got to be real about it. Roster's not good.
Yeah.
Roster's not good. Defense looks okay. We don't have a lot of depth. We've lost a lot of depth pieces. There's a lot of work to do in that regard on the defensive side of the ball. On offense, it's all bad. I know we've added a couple new starters to the offensive line again. Wait till September before I make a judgment on whether they're good or not. We've done nothing to the wide receiver core. It was the worst in the NFL last year, and it's the exact same right now, which I expected it to be at this point. The draft is going to matter. Quinshon Judkins coming back from injury. How long until he's 100% effective? I know he'll be 100% cleared for the start of the year, but we won't see his true explosiveness for a while coming off of this injury. I'm tempering my expectations. I look at the team last year. We won 5 games. We were a couple plays away here and there from maybe winning 8. That's kind of crazy to think about, but an 8 or 9 win season last year was achievable. Yeah, it was. Yep. We were very
couple
close.
Plays here and there.
Yeah, a couple plays here and there, and that's how football goes. So if things go our way, could I see us winning 9 games this year? Yeah, absolutely. Could I see this be a 3-win season and we're picking top 5 again? Yes. I can see all those outcomes being true. I don't think it's going to be like a 12-win season. We don't need to go that crazy, but there's reason to be hopeful and optimistic. I will say cautiously optimistic because, again, 3 wins, 9 wins, I think both are achievable, both are possible, and it's really going to come down to how much of an impact can Todd Monken make on this team, on this roster. I know a lot of the players have already come out and said, he's different than what I thought he was going to be. He's more personable. He's, They seem to like him relationship wise. I'm just hoping the coaching staff he's assembled is better than what we've seen under Kevin Stefanski. Special teams needs to take a massive step forward. That was such a liability last year. Cost us the Jets game, which we lost to the Jets and Titans, man. Terrible season. But I'm going to be hyped whether I'm excited for the record outcome. I'm going to be hyped for the season. I'm hyped for this team. And I'll be very excited to see the new rookies come out and play.
Yeah. And I mean, you've got to always, as I said, you've got to be careful doing that because it's March. Until I see the draft, I'm obviously going to have a much different opinion on this than I am now. And I do think it's quite a silly question, to be honest. The only reason I asked it is because, I mean, it's an off-season video. I've got a guest on. I've got to ask it. But and I think it's the same with me. And I think how many teams can have this variation? Where like last year, I was kind of on the same boat where I was like, look, don't get me wrong. This team could lose this team could win 2 games. Like this might be the first overall pick. This might be a disaster. But I wouldn't be shocked if they won 7 or 8 games. Don't get me wrong. I didn't think playoffs was a achievable thing, but I did think that they could be a sneaky team that's not technically eliminated in week 15, that kind of thing. And it's weird because this year I have, I suppose, a higher floor technically, but a higher ceiling, but still that variation, as you kind of said there, where if they go out and win 5 games again, I'm not going to be shocked. I'm not going to go, well, that was the worst. Like that, I could have never expected that. I mean, SHEDEUR Sanders, it might not work out. This offense might not work out. You could easily see a route to this team only winning 5 games. But then you look at the schedule. Hopefully, as you said there, we've lost some depth pieces, but I'm hoping this defense can stay somewhat in the same kind of production that we've seen out of them the last 2 years. Not got that many great quarterbacks on the schedule next year when you look at the schedule. So I think that variation is there. And I think there's certainly a chance that, if you're sat here in March and you want to get yourself excited for the 2026 season and you want to try and get yourself excited for potential, but I do think there is a chance that the Browns can, get this offense to a serviceable level to complement the defense, go along with that record, and you can go and win yourself 9-10 games and maybe sneak into the playoffs. I think that is certainly a possibility. But because it's the Cleveland Browns, as I said, I don't know how many other teams can enter a season with this much of a variation between expectations. But there's also a chance that the Browns just go out, fall flat on their face. Todd Monken doesn't work. The offense doesn't work. SHEDEUR doesn't work. And we're staring at another top 5 pick next year. I just think that's the nature of being a Cleveland Browns fan. And don't get me wrong, as much as we can kind of do the misery stuff with a Browns fan, I know everyone likes to, we have it worse than anyone. That is true mostly in the NFL. There is, most teams could have, in any given season. That's why we love the NFL, that you could have a team that wins 4 games and the next season goes and makes a run to the AFC Championship. We've seen that so many times. And that's why I suppose I'll finish off on the optimistic side of it rather than the kind of how it could be a disaster. That's why I will always, as much as the Browns try to beat this out of me, I will always have that kind of that optimistic approach every offseason of it's a new year, you've got a new chart, you've got another opportunity to go and improve your football team. And my favorite thing about sports is that there's always next year, and that's something I always say. And every team always has that chance when it's week 0. As bad as it can be, I'm always going to be sat there going, well, the best case can happen. Very rarely does for us as Browns fans. I say very rarely. It's never happened. We've never won a Super Bowl. I mean, the championships were from before even my dad was born, let alone when I was born. So obviously that's the case, but I'm always going to have that optimistic approach about it.
Yeah, me too. Me too, for sure. And to stay on the optimistic side, as long as the things that we have heard and been told, which doesn't always end up being the case, but if these things are true about Todd Monken, he's always had a successful offense implemented wherever he's been. Okay. Yeah. That's what we need to see in Cleveland. Like you just said, if the offense can just complement the defense, it doesn't have to be top 15. Just don't be bottom of the league. It's a completely different team than what we've seen the last 2 years, if that ends up being the case. And it was much harder to look at the team last year with any sort of optimism for playoffs and that kind of stuff. with no certainty whatsoever at quarterback. We got 2 rookies, late round rookies, and we've got Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett. This is not who's even going to be the starter.
Yeah.
Well, I'm much more confident after watching Shedeur Sanders last year if everything goes well for this offense, Todd Monken can do what he's done everywhere else here in Cleveland with these guys. He obviously, he likes Shedeur Sanders. You can tell he's got an idea of what I can do with this guy.
Yeah,
that was one of the questions the Browns asked on those aptitude tests or whatever during the head coaching searches. How would you continue the development of Shedeur Sanders? So that goes back to why I think he's the plan. Unless something else better just happens to fall in their lap, he's the plan.
Yeah.
So I am very. I can easily see, more easily see what you're talking about with a playoff future being a potential this year. I was definitely not looking at it that way last year. But this year, could the Browns sneak their way to, and again, in the North right now, maybe 9 wins get you there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to be the most different AFC North pretty much since I've been a Browns fan. I mean, Mike Tomlin and Harbaugh, they were in this division my whole entire Browns fandom. So this is the first time that I'm going to see a Steelers team without Tomlin. This is the first time I'm going to see a Ravens team without Harbaugh. So, all of that kind of turnover within the division, the Bengals are the Bengals. I'm sure Joe Burrow will be injured by week 6. So we don't really need to worry too much about that. We've never won the division. It would be silly for me to sit here and say that should be the goal, should be winning the division. But, that should be the goal every single year. And I suppose I'll wrap it up by saying that, as I said, I can talk optimism, all of this stuff. As I said, last year, I didn't think playoffs was an option. I didn't think that was even remotely something that we should be striving for, because if I even said that, then, any disappointment if you didn't get close to that. I just didn't think that was a chance. I do think that is something that people can look to this year. And I'll finish it by saying that I feel better about this Browns team in March this year than I did about last year's team in July. And I think that's quite a big difference. I mean, we've literally got draft, OTAs and training camp in between, that kind of stuff, all of those things to happen. Yet I still feel better now, even before all of that, for this team going into next year than I did about last year's team in July, even August, hell, even preseason. So obviously we're all Browns fans hoping for that final season that we can go and taste some silverware. Is it going to be next year? I doubt it, but it's the NFL, so you never know. Josh, thank you so much for giving me your time. Absolutely love talking Browns with every Browns fan, and especially Browns fan as well versed as yourself. So really enjoyed talking with you. Before I let you go, just in case anyone doesn't know where to find you, which if they don't, where have you been living under the last 3 years? Clearly a rock, because one of the best podcasts out there for the Cleveland Browns. Let everyone know where they can find you in the podcast, Josh.
I really appreciate that. Yeah, we're at the Dogs Podcast on all the social medias, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that. And then, again, at the Dogs Podcast on YouTube. You can find the podcast on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you listen to podcasts. We've got the audio out there. We got video. And we're trying to ramp up the content even more, especially right now with this last, 3.5 week stretch up into the draft, until we're doing our annual live stream on night 1 of the draft. It's going to be a ton of fun.
Yep, I'll be joining in. So I hope everyone else go and check that out and join in as well. Josh, thank you so much again, and hopefully talk soon.
All right, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.